Choyo sampo pagyo trashi pa tuche tempe chinle yarngoda pelge drolor zampe zeparache pande lame shabla solvade Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Sumati Munisha Uta Vardanya Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Dhagi Jetsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Siksu So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Uyon Sungi Nawa Tsedo So Seji Nyingne Solwa Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Visu Lekshune Yila Sambe Dede Malupa Gemel Hungi Drupra Chingelo Soni Sodan Dikdun Shape Tse Dungi Namkeyin So Lekshune Lapchen tsonyi yonso tsopa dan chera nye dun chanwara chingelo jancho parginin tsen tukun tu nyo peme siudro lekshune jancho drube gegen kunshishi tungen de la drubra chingel dagi lona chola chokpa dan chomin samchur ngenba shiwat chodan tumbe dudun malupa beme lungi drubra chingelo Dorna tene tsira tamchedan techi pardo nekav tamchet Rese kyamne lama keleme tukje chingi dala siksoso Gongyab drewe nyamda dachala jetsun lame tuje rab gongne Kudan sungi nawa dralme tu nyamsu nyongwe kesan toprasho Kewa kuntu yanda lama dan rame cheki pela long Rabzone dorje change kopa nyur tobo shoyo pakyuke kudan dagi alu pakyuke sundan dagi nga pakyuke tukdan dagi yi ten yerme chiktu Chingi lo ma kyuke kudan dagi lu ma kyuke sundan dagi nga ma kyuke tukdan dagi yi ten yerme chiktu chingi Shakya. Shakyamuni Swaha. Sashipeki Choshimeto Tamare Rabalingashi Nidegempadi Sange Shintu Mikte Ulwarki Drokunam Da Shingla Chopar Shoyedam Guru Radna Mindrala Kamnirya Dayami Sangye Chedan Soge Chonamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Soge Chonamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chodan Sogi Chonamla Chancho Pardo Danik Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Namo ya lai ke dan lu dan jin ke ru dan da mi ke nam dan ro gung ge tanam chi tsampa tham che ke to da gi che ten. Buongiorno.
Good morning. Years ago, in the monastery of Serame, I think I had just arrived, maybe just before I had arrived, a friend of ours, our friend Radia from Holland, she was living in India. She was studying Tibetan medicine in the north of India, in Dharamsala, and then she spent some time in the south of India. She was young, maybe 18, 19 years old at the time. And during that period, she would give English lessons to some monks, the monks that were there in that 6 month, 1 year that she was there. And one of her students, let's say, was a lama in who at the time was 6 years old, and later we became classmates. And at a certain point, it was Radia's birthday. And I don't know, I don't know if it was like her 18th birthday or something like that, and she organized a little party, a little birthday party, and she invited the ones that were closer to her, and she also invited this Rinpoche. And just to give the context, he had arrived. He had been born in Tibet. He came to the monastery when he was 3 years old, and he didn't understand. And she was saying, "No, I'm inviting you to my birthday party." He said, "This I understand, but why are you celebrating?" Because it's my birthday. It's the day I was born, and it's my birthday. We celebrate. And she said, and he said, "You're celebrating your impermanence? I don't understand, but okay. Anyway, I'll come." So these are cultural differences, and then it's changed in the last in recent years, and it's changed. This has also changed, but in the Tibetan culture, this concept of birthday is totally absent. You know, practically no one knows the day they were born. That's why when we celebrate the great masters, to remember, we when we celebrate great masters, we celebrate the day that they left their body because we know that date, but we don't necessarily know when they were born. So they say, "Oh, it was more or less. Let's say it was the beginning of it was summer, maybe the end of spring in that year." So we know the day Lama Ganshin. We know the day he was born because he was born during a sacred day. We knew. Otherwise, we wouldn't know. So now here, even just 1-year-olds, we have the big birthday parties. But something that's interesting is it's a culture originally before this influence of the modern world, where the collective was more important than the individual. So there wasn't this cult, let's say, of the of the individual. So for us, the most important thing that exists and that will ever exist is myself. It's like when we say like the client is always right. It's we can say, okay, the individual is always right in each one of us, and there are great. I mean, there are positive aspects when we think about democracy, etc. There are many positive things, but just like the pendulum that swings goes from one extreme to another. Often we have this idea that just everything turns around myself or the I. And in more ancient societies, and also here in the West, but in Tibet it was like this until just a short time ago. So if you need to forecast how the year is going to go, the provisions, so for example, at the monastery at Tashilumpo in Tibet, you do the astrological map of one person. That's the Panchen Lama, and that is valid for everyone because there's a collective identity. So if the collective is fine, then that's good for me. And if it's not well, then that is negative for me. And so there is no separation. So here, when we look at the years, every 12 years, according to the Tibetan astrology, every 12th year is difficult. So when we get to that 12th year cycle of the Panchen Lama, everyone is more pays more attention and is more careful. And then difficult things, when difficult things happen, we say, "Oh, because it's this 12th year cycle of the Panchen Lama, etc." But my point here is, when we have an identity, the more that identity is focused on the I and the my, somehow then we give more importance to small troubles. We become more vulnerable. On the other side, the more we're able to have a wider identity, where we have a greater goal, our daily individual troubles, difficulties weigh less. So when our on the so maybe if I think about myself and the small difficulties that I have, I don't care. But of course, if there are problems in the collective, that also can weigh on me. But looking from the macro, the objectives on a macro level, they're usually more long term and on a greater scale. And these micro these micro objectives are focused more on short-term self objectives. And we can, I like to make this distinction between short-term objectives, like today, now, in these days, this year. I mean, what is happening now, what I'm able to see and feel, what I have in front of me. The midterm would be this life, and long term would be that which transcends this life. That has to do with, well, my next life, or my children's future lives, or the planet's health in the future. Ideally, we should give our priority to long-term objectives, and these mid-term objectives are a support, and those very short-term objectives are also a support to those which are support to those long-term objectives. But when we have a objective like the importance of the greater good, when we have an objective that goes beyond ourselves, and we want to, for example, we want to dedicate our lives for this or that, at a certain point, we have a short-term difficulty. Maybe we have sickness or some kind of conflict in the family, or an economic difficulty. Then what becomes the priority? The long term or mid term? No, the short term. For that not to happen, so the objective, our real objective, our mid and long term objective needs to really, really be solid within us. Otherwise, if we have objectives that are mid and long term that are weak, or our connection, our commitment towards that is weak, then as soon as there is a short-term difficulty, that becomes our exclusive priority. There's a way of saying in Portuguese, which is, it's kind of a strong image, but it's said that sometimes we are so bothered by the problems in the present that we want at all costs to resolve that, and then we absolutely forget we forget the long term, or the benefits of the long term benefits. And the example that's given is like a baby, and we've just washed this baby. So imagine you have this basin that we've used to bathe the baby, but now the water's dirty, the water's really dirty. Maybe the baby even pooped in the water. It's smelly, and we don't want that stinky water. So to not have that smell, we throw away the baby together with the bathwater, so we don't smell that bad smell. It was crazy. So this idiom is to throw out the baby with the bathwater. But when you're in front of a short-term difficulty and you don't have a connection to that greater objective, you 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 throw away, you forget your larger, more important goal just to resolve your short-term problem. The deeper the the deeper my commitment is, to that objective, the greater that objective is and the greater that commitment is, then it will be a lot easier to face the daily problems, which are hard for everybody. So an important point, unfortunately, we live in a time where we live in this extreme of individualism, where we have this strange idea that to be happy, I need to do what I want, when I want, and how I want it. How I want it, when I want it, as if we even knew what the right thing was. We have this idea where I know what's best for me. I remember when Lama Ganshin came, he told the story that when he first got to the West, he went to the supermarket, and now I'm just going to put it in my own words, but he talked about the anxiety about choosing the products. I came from a context where you would go, there are two kinds of toothpaste. It's maybe for sensitive teeth and normal teeth, or the cheaper and the more expensive. Here there are 25 different types of toothpaste. And I look, maybe this one's better, maybe that one's better. Oh, did I buy the right one? There was someone close to me when I was a child, and when I would go to buy something, maybe a pair of shoes, I would spend hours choosing, and once I chose and bought those shoes, once I was in this, I was in a in a no. Oh, so this person took not myself. This person would spend a lot of time looking for shoes, and then once he bought them, it would go and look into other stores to see if they were better, if there was a better choice, or if they cost less. And I'd say, no, you've already made your choice. Let it go. But the point is, when we have lots of choice, we put onto ourselves this weight of having to choose what's best for us. For example, we always go to extremes. We have this tendency, it's really like a pendulum, to go from one extreme to the other. It's hard to stay in the middle. Once at a certain, one would get to a certain age and wouldn't have to choose his career. There was the family context, the necessities of the family, and one was going to be a shoemaker, and that was it. And then there was one, maybe the one who was a shoemaker was so good, then he opened up his own shoe store. Or maybe someone who was absolutely not able whatsoever and had to do something else. But this question, what do you want to do, is something that really didn't exist in the past. How heavy is this choice? I think that most of you have already gone through this. My choice I made when I was quite young, at 12 years old. So I I didn't really go through much of a crisis through this, but when I look around, and I mean, it's not an easy moment, and to put that weight on ourselves to making a choice that has to do with our entire life, say, what will I do, what profession should I follow, is heavy, and it takes in a tremendous amount of space and energy in my life. So for making choices, it can create tension. It takes up space. When we're looking towards our future, that creates a kind of feeling of having a kind of threat in front of me. Oh, maybe I'm making the right choice. It's going to go this way. It's going to go that way. That creates stress. That increases the cortisol, etc. On a smaller it's a little bit like being in front of the toothpaste on a that would be on a much greater scale, but this dynamic is strongly connected to this other extreme in which we live, where the individual is the most important, because I'm the one who should know what's best for me. I'm the one who should make all the choices, and the final objective is myself. I'm the one that's the most important. I'm sorry if I put it like this, but if the if the objective of our own lives is just based on ourselves, it's really quite sad. I'm sorry if I put it like that. It's beautiful. This passage of this book, the um, it's a very, very small book. It's called the Walking Man. And there's a passage that says we need to start with ourselves, but not end with ourselves. I begin with myself. I work on myself, but not for myself. And somehow, how can I say? One of the antidotes for most of our difficulties is to allow ourselves to connect and then follow an objective that transcends the I. And one of the fundamental things in this is the values that we want to spread. We can have the common good of the society that we want to spread, or believe in the certain respect for the environment, or peace, or the importance of spiritual life. We can have many different ways, but having an objective, believing in something that transcends the self, oneself, the I and the my, is something that helps us tremendously. If we think, historically speaking, we've come, once the identity was more collective, there was um, one's nation, then one's family. We do everything for one's family. And now it's not even for the family. Now it's for myself. Okay, yes, there's a family, and we take care. But first of all, there's myself. And it's sad. It's a little sad. It's reductive in the sense that as soon as we are faced with difficulties, it becomes difficult. That becomes our absolute priority, because the objective is me. When instead we're able to feel that there's something greater, because there is, when we're able to see that our life is really small, and it is actually, if we look in the like historically, in the historical context of great changes in society and the nature, etc., how big or small is our life? it's microscopic, even on a temporal level, and also the impact related to the impact. We're small, but in this being small, we have the power to interact and to do and to contribute and to do a lot. But we're small. We're born. We have our story. It seems so important, and then we're going to die, and then someone will remember us for a while, and that's it, right? Because let's say it as it is. At some point, one dies, and there will be a period of a few years when there will be someone mourning for our passing. But then after a while, maybe 20, 30, 50 years, and maybe somewhere, okay, we can say, oh, once there was this person who named, and it just ends there. Sincerely, once once I'm dead, those who remember. Those who don't, it's not important anyway. That's another topic. So we go on, we die. I'm convinced that we were reborn and that we continue, but this collective continues as well. And what we do for the whole, for our Sangha, for our society where we live, in our city, the environment, etc., that continues. And the way we live has a strong weight on the whole. And some would say, okay, here it sounds like there's a contradiction. On one side, you say that we're very small. On the other side, we have, this weight of the whole. How does that all work? And it reminds me of a time when I was with Rinpoche in Caracas in Venezuela, and maybe around 1996, and we went to Venezuela, and it was a really nice time. And in the middle of all of that, this was a course of self-healing, and there was an interreligious encounter, and often Lama Ganchen, I was very, very small, and he would say, okay, now you speak. And they were the most important representatives of the religious entities there of Venezuela. We had been received by the president the day before. It was just very formal and important. And I remember at this very formal moment, and he said, now you speak. And I had listened to the other speak, and I had this feeling that they were all talking about how important peace was, and because of this, that, and the other. And then I had this image when I was there. My feeling is, imagine that each one of us was like a little grain of rice, and in front of us we look at this huge container, and we say, okay, that container should be full of rice. How wonderful it would be if this container was full of rice. But I'm so small. Who's going to, why should I put in all this effort into, figuring out how to get into this container? I can't do anything. I'm so small. That container is so great. I'm nothing. But there are thousands of us, the small grains of rice, saying the same thing. There are those who don't even allow themselves to dream of filling up that container. They don't even just allow oneself to desire it. And others desire it, saying, well, if the others were on board, I would put in effort as well. And then the container stays empty. the jar stays empty, because we can. It only gets filled with one grain of rice at a time. But often we have this greater dream, the kind of society we want to live in. The peace, unfortunately, is a word that has been abused. And sometimes it happens that there are words that are abused. When you abuse a word, when you use a word in the wrong context, it takes away the power of that word. And sometimes when you now we're going into another topic, but sometimes when you don't want a word to be hefty, you use that word in the wrong context to take away that strength, So then that way, in the right context, it has less weight, and this happens in the political, social political realm. Anyway, if we want a greater objective. Often, and we say, "Oh, it would be wonderful, but that's impossible. So, better that I live my little life outside that empty jar." And what we're not able to understand is that for ourselves, it would be better if we put in the effort to try to get into that jar. I'm convinced that at the end of the day, living one's life, even if one is never able to reach one's objective or see that jar full, living for that and acting for that gives much more meaning to one's life, and one lives one's life in such a better way. But actually, we're trying to get to a technique that's actually in the Buddhist teachings. For me, is wonderful. It's a little sly on one side, which is, how can I make you understand that it's more important to be altruistic? How can I convince you to be altruistic when at the basis we're all selfish? How can I how can I develop a sense of altruism based on selfishness? It's not possible to eliminate selfishness to then become altruistic. The only real way that can seem like we're forcing it, but it's actually possible. We use selfishness, self-centeredness to become altruistic. I can only use what I have, not what I don't have. I can only start where I am. I can't start where I'm not. In this moment, we are individualistic. We have objectives that are based where the priority is the I and the my. So how can I get out of this and widen our objective where there's a common good and others become important too, where there are higher objectives like peace and harmony and respect, which are so important. What about the harmony, respect for nature? How can we go from one thing that's completely individualistic? The relationship we have with nature is absolutely clear, because I can't be well if my environment is polluted. That's true, right? I mean, if we live in a polluted environment, it's harmful to us, right? But it's tiresome to separate my garbage. It's not convenient to not buy this or that. I don't like living among the garbage, so I throw it on the other side of the wall, and I don't see it, and so it has nothing to do with me afterwards. It's just, as long as it's not at my house. But what happens after, if I throw the garbage away, and then that person takes it and burns it, it's coming back to me, isn't it? That's clearly it is. I mean, how many of you have actually done any kind of research on what happens to our garbage? Here, I once asked myself, no, really, I mean, what happens to our garbage? I understood that here in this area, there is no, there is no, the, the actual factory to recycle plastic doesn't exist. The closest one is Bergamo. So I don't like plastic, because now I'm totally fixated on microplastics. But when I think that, for something small, there's this enormous container, that has to be transported from so far all the way to here. You see it differently. I really don't like using plastic at all. But we have this idea, well, if it's not in my house, then it has nothing to do with me. But that's not true, because it comes back to us on an economic level, on an environmental level. So the possible key for us is to gradually, doesn't happen from one day to the next, but understand that speaking just thinking of the I and the my, it's better for myself to think about others. I'm better if I think of others, if I have an objective that transcends myself, if the common good is my priority above my individual priority. At the end, I'm better off. So, egotistically speaking, it's better to be altruistic from the point of view of one's individual, the I and the my life, etc. When I'm able to have an objective that transcends myself, I live my life better. Small problems in my life, which are inevitably there, are less important. And we can see this even when we're able to dedicate ourselves to one person. Even just beyond ourselves, there's someone else. It can be a child, a parent, or whoever it is. When there's one person that is as important as ourselves, someone that we can take care of and dedicate ourselves to, this helps us overcome problems that normally we would find difficult. It would give us strength that normally we wouldn't have. I mean, it really changes our life. And the more we're able to widen this, the better it is for ourselves. So I invite you, try to widen your scope of life. Open yourself to the possibilities in life. And ask yourself, what are your desires? What are the dreams that transcend yourself? Or better, what are the collective dreams that I can be a part of? And someone might say, but it's a utopia. Someone might say, okay, the example of the jar is nice, the grains of rice, but it's better that each one invests in his own life, because it's impossible to fill that jar. I don't believe that's true. I believe that, for example, the utopia that all beings reach enlightenment is beautiful, but how it's like at the end of the debates at the monastery in Serame, at the end, there's always this verse that says, So it says, can a sentient being reach enlightenment? Yes. And the conclusion is, all sentient beings can reach enlightenment. Yes. Will there be a day where they have all reached enlightenment? No. In the sense that if we try to project in the future and say, okay, if in the future can we say there will be a moment where everyone will be in complete living in complete peace. Each one has that potential, yes, but putting energy, will there be a time where everyone is in that state? No, but working for that works for our benefit. So maybe we can't reach enlightenment in a determined amount of time, but we can certainly live with we live with fewer mental defilements, transcend violence, have less, have more patience, have more love. I mean, this means so much. But when we have a greater objective that helps us walk in that direction, and that's what we need. Otherwise, there's another negative side effect on the other extreme, that when our individual our individual objectives are not satisfied, we don't find meaning in life. So why should I live? The pleasures don't give me pleasure. I get bored. You know, why should I continue? And if we see there's an increase in society, generally speaking, in suicides, it's frightening. It's absolutely frightening, and younger and younger it's happening. I don't know. A short time ago, someone close to me, there was a 9-year-old child who took his life. You hear stories of children of every age and young kids. Wow! Someone asks himself, well, what have we become? And there are many aspects connected here, but one aspect is the fact that we not finding meaning. Asking oneself, what's the meaning of all this? And this comes, it's a result, it's a negative side effect, depression, etc. There are other aspects that are connected, but a large part of depression is connected to the individualism itself. There's I and the my. I've never seen someone depressed thinking about somebody else. I don't know. It's normally something that has to do with himself. And we live in a time where we have a tremendous amount of negative side effects. And this extreme individualism is really harmful. So at least we should try to take care of another, an animal, a plant. You have to add water or take care of the soil. That's already something. And then if we can go on to people close to us, and then get to even those that we don't know, those that from whom we don't receive anything in exchange, and then we just increase our view and see the importance of everyone, nature and the environment and all of society. So for everyone, try to say, okay, I have long-term objectives. What do I want that to transcend this life? Ask yourself this question. What do I want for this life that transcends this present life and these years of life, and and then also what are my needs? What do I see for this immediate future? And when we're able somehow to connect ourselves with something, um, you know, when we can dedicate ourselves to what goes, beyond this life, these our daily preoccupations are weigh a lot less. Sometimes people say, "Oh, Lama, I want to talk to you because I have this trouble. I'm not able to develop renunciation or bodhicitta, or because for the peace here and there." And normally, you know, that's not what people come to me. Usually it's, "Oh, I have this problem. I fought with this person economically. I have this problem." I mean, the problems people bring me, they're short-term problems. And it's important to face short-term difficulties, but as an instrument, as a tool to reach something greater. It changes our life when we're able to live our short term, um, live our short term as a tool for the future. And it takes some patience. We don't throw the baby out with the bath water. We have to clean that water. We have to gently take the baby, protect the baby, and then dispose of the water. And generally for all of us, and in Buddhism, when we see the objectives that are set, they're exactly that. We go from this objective of the I and the my here and now, and we get to an objective of being at peace with myself, and being at peace with myself and with everyone, and in harmony, regardless of the context I find myself. So I repeat, I invite you to reflect on your long-term objectives, those that transcend this life. Maybe someone might answer, "I don't know." I mean, the first objective is to have an objective, and that's already a lot. It's no joke. And sometimes it's not having a perfect objective. No, as we go, we have more clarity, but we give ourselves a direction. And what we're talking about here is not something necessarily simple. It's a challenge. It's challenging because we are strongly influenced by our society and the cultural context in which we were raised, and now and all those inputs they're mostly directed at individualism. So we do need to swim against the current here, without getting into the other side. Unfortunately, the inputs for the collective is this individualism multiplied, where you get into extreme nationalism, or there's me and you, us and you. I mean, that also is very harmful. Sometimes it's not a collective. It's a sum of individualism. Instead, have something that transcends me, and possibly so that it includes everyone. So think about it. Allow ourselves to dream, to desire it. As Lama Ganchen Rinpoche taught us, the impossible becomes possible. The impossible becomes possible when we believe in it. Otherwise, no. And there are things that I think are possible. peace itself, for example. So allow ourselves to dream and dream about what might seem impossible, and then we walk slowly, slowly, quickly, as Lama Michel Rinpoche used to say, which means one step at a time you get far. There's in Italian, it's piano piano si arriva lontano. Little by little you get far. But we need to have a direction. Otherwise, little by little, you're just turning around in circles. So ask yourself, write it down, verbalize it. What are my objectives on a mid and long term? What do I want for this life? And and what are my needs in this short term? And connect them. And I leave this challenge to you. It's time for our dedications.
Drove munsel takto ne gyurchi kewa kuntu yanda lama dang drame cheki pela longche ching sadan lamge yunten rabzone dorje change kopa nyur toba sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shin ninsen takto delek pe kuncho sumke chinge lobo kuncho sumke ngodrubo tsol kuncho sumke trashisho.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to obtain all the realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
Buona giornata a tutti. E una sola cosa che riguarda principalmente chi si trova qui ad Albagnano, che è una piccola richiesta. Questo giovedì, a un certo punto c'è questa la nostra amica della Sangha, la Letizia, che farà un intervento abbastanza pesante. Dovrà fare un intervento alla testa, al cervello, eccetera. E quindi si sta organizzando di poter fare l'eventuntare durante il periodo dell'intervento, e quindi invito a tutti di poter partecipare al meglio. Ok? Grazie a tutti.
Oh, sorry.